I just have to say, thanks for the endorsement, Bill. Took you long enough.
Oh, snap!
Sorry, Hillary. I was running on CP time.
That's not, I don't like jokes like that, Bill. That's not funny.
Cautious politician time. I've been there.
Joining me now, New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio, who in a statement today about the skit said, let's be clear, in an evening of satire, the only person this was meant to mock was the mayor himself, period. Certainly no one intended to offend anyone. It's good to have you here. I'm going to stipulate this skit is not at all the most important thing in America or politics, but I do want to ask you this.
I commend you.
Look, I cringed. I know a lot of people that cringe. Obviously, CP time is people of color time, but with the C and the P switched around. Why not just apologize? Why not just say we should have done the joke?
It's a satire. The whole show was a satire. I was mocking myself. I'm sorry. I just think, I take full responsibility. Someone else wrote the script, but I approved it. So I just think sometimes there's a place for satire in this world, and that's what this was.
If you had to do it over again, would you do it?
I'm pretty comfortable with it. It was meant to be a joke on the way we speak. It was obviously not meant to offend anyone, and it was part of a show that was filled with satire, making fun of elected officials, making fun of our normal political discourse. You know, you have to put it in the context of the evening.
I will say, for the context, that this is the same event at which Rudy Giuliani famously dressed in drag and was sort of seduced by Donald Trump. So that's just so folks outside of New York
It's not a typical everyday moment in political life.
So I want to ask you about money in politics. Now, there are two donors to you that have been investigated by the U.S. Attorney here.
Well, we understand they're being investigated.
There are reports that they're being investigated. You said you're confident they didn't get any favors, and you've also said you're not going to speak more about it because it's an ongoing investigation. So I wanted to ask you about this quote. Until we get money entirely out of the political system, of course you're going to turn to people for donations big and small, but that doesn't change the way you make decisions. And my question for you is, it seems like the Clinton campaign and you in that quote are trying to hold two ideas, right? One is, yes, money has undue influence and we need a systemic solution to it. But in the particular case of me, money doesn't have influence.
No, I don't agree with that. Look, there's something disingenuous about having a discourse about a set of rules and then wanting everyone to not have to play by those rules. I mean, this is the reality. Again, it's a free enterprise system. I've often expressed my concerns about the problems of a free enterprise system, but since Buckley v. Vallejo, donations have been considered free speech by the Supreme Court. Unfortunately, that was supercharged and put on steroids on the Citizens United case. These are the rules of the game, which means everyone has an opportunity to go out and get those donations and use them for their campaigns to get their message out. If they don't, in many cases, they just won't get their message out. Now, knowing that reality, you have to have your own set of standards. My standards are I'm going to do what I think is in the people's interest no matter who gave the money. I'm always going to follow the rules, including the disclosure requirements. One day I'd like to see us end, let me just finish, I'd like to end the practice of private donations. If I had my druthers, we would have a fully public finance system and a short campaign window, as is true in some European country.
But here seems to be the issue. I mean, every politician you speak to will tell you that. I mean, and I'm not saying that you're wrong or right in your particular case, right? But if you go to a politician, people that I agree with ideologically, people that don't, they say, look, no, I don't vote some way because a donor asked me to. And yet in the aggregate, right, we all have a sense that it does influence, right? So I just don't understand how you can make the case the system needs reform, but in every particular case, it's not doing anything bad.
I understand the logic. The problem I have is if someone has a message to get out, and I'm a progressive, and I'm a change agent, I think I've proven that.
Yeah.
To win my election, I had to get a message out. To come back, I have to get a message out. It requires resources. In New York City, we're very lucky to have an extremely stringent campaign finance system, one of the very best in the country. Matching funds for smaller donations, real strict campaign limits, but you still need to get the resources together and get your message out. So, okay, how do you then parse that? My best estimation of a way forward until we have structural reform is to hold very high standards for yourself. So yeah, it becomes very subjective, and you and I both know some people have done a great job of that and some people haven't. But in the end, it is the system we're working. If there were free airtime, if there's any alternative way to get your message out, that would be a real interesting discussion, but there isn't.
You know, it's been striking to watch New York play this role in a primary, right? I mean, we're so used to this primary system that's so front-loaded, usually in Iowa and New Hampshire and South Carolina, and so all of the stuff we're used to with like the corn dogs and the snow-covered barns, and now it's like Junior's Cheesecake and Arthur Avenue, which is great.
And the Matzah Factory.
And the Matzah Factory, which I love. I love all of this. But one question I have for you is, are there issues that are really important to people that live in big cities like New York that you feel are not getting enough attention in the presidential campaign?
Look, I think they're getting attention, maybe not explicitly as an urban agenda. What would be an urban agenda? It would be greater investments by the federal government in mass transit, in infrastructure, in public education, in affordable housing. That would be the simplest way to boil down an urban agenda. What I see that I think is foundational to that, I see it from my candidate, Hillary Clinton, I certainly, of course, see it from Bernie Sanders as well, is a call for greater taxes from the wealthy that would actually fund these types of federal investments. So breaking out of this pattern, the sort of Reaganite pattern that we've lived in for 30 years of trickle-down economics, and actually acknowledging that we're going to have to tax the wealthy in a very different way if we're going to have a federal government that invests. And the cities are more central to our economy than they have been in decades. They're really the focal point of the American economy more and more in a globalized world. So I'm thrilled that the two Democrats are talking about taxing the wealthy. Hillary Clinton's the person I can believe who can actually get it done. I think she's the person who can actually win the general election and get this done. I want to see more and more discussion of the specific investments, but I would say certainly as a Hillary supporter, I would say she's talked a lot about the kind of targeted investments that are going to be needed to help young people, for example. She's certainly talked about infrastructure. So I think we're making progress towards a greater vision of an urban agenda. Without taxing the wealthy, though, without changing the rules of the game, you can't achieve it.
Final question on superdelegates, which have been a sort of controversial. You are not a superdelegate, but you will probably be elected to be one. Is that my understanding?
There is a New York State Democratic convention that will choose a certain number of delegates. It's not a traditional superdelegate because it's voted on by a convention. So it's a different model.
If Mayor Bill Blasio had a magic wand, would you get rid of superdelegates?
I would say it a little differently. I would say right now superdelegates are legitimate because they, by and large, the people who've been elected to something, often very big.
They have some constituency.
They have big constituencies. I think there's a valid question going forward. What's the best way to encourage maximum participation? Right now we have a voting system that is hemorrhaging voters, right? This year we've seen some good evidence of voters engaging, but by and large over the last decade or two, voter involvement has declined. We've got to figure out a series of reforms, and that also has issues for how we go about the party process.
Particularly here in New York. We have 3 primaries this year, which is insane. Mayor de Blasio.
Even for those who love politics,
yes,
that's a little
insane.
too much.
Thank you for making the time.
Thank
Appreciate
you,
it.
Chris.